Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Inside Secrets of the Caribbean. My name is Ria. I am your host, and I'm very pleased to welcome Monique Mills. She is currently in Grenada, St. George's. How are you, Monique?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, yeah, you are, let's tell everyone, you are a Canadian, which is a great thing for me to have on board here from the Caribbean. And you are also a captain.
Yes. Yes,
Now,
landlocked prairie girl makes good on the ocean.
well, yeah, where are you from originally?
Calgary. Yeah, so I learned how to sail on a small lake, and that started when I was about 10 years old. So it was a passion that took me over literally since I was a little girl. And if no one could sail with me, sometimes I would go sailing by myself.
Well, tell me, what was the journey?
The days before.
Sorry, what was the journey from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, to the Caribbean? There's a few years in between there, I guess.
There's quite a few years in between, but the thing that remains consistent in my life is my curiosity. So I think, the greatest influence in my life was National Geographic magazine. And then my father was quite an adventurer too. So, I think having his influence where he didn't see the world as a place to fear, and I saw the world as a place to adventure. So ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a photojournalist for National Geographic. But, life gets in the way. And, I ended up building up my career. And then at some point, I just thought, you know what? I want to change things. Life is short. Time is precious. I'm going to follow this passion and see where it leads me. So it led me to Grenada, this beautiful island. And you say secrets of the Caribbean. Well, let's make sure this doesn't remain a secret, because this is a gorgeous.
Well, tell me what you're doing there, because I have seen some stories and I have seen, you're working on something right now as well, but you actually have a charter yacht.
Yes, I do. And she's very special. She's unique in the world. It's handmade here on the island. And it's done in the tradition that came to the islands 200 years ago when the Scottish were sent here to do boat building. They were sent to Nova Scotia or they were sent to Grenada. Lucky ones got to Grenada.
Yeah.
And from there for 200 years, her design is actually a cargo schooner, 73 feet long by 20 feet wide. And she's done a design called the Nova Scotia schooner, which is designed for cargo. And that was the role of these ships for hundreds of years. But now as technology's taken over and power boats, the actual craftsmanship is starting to fade. And right now I have my boat out on the Heart. It's called Dry Dock, where it's out of the water. And I had brought in some highly skilled gentlemen from Captain Martinique, which is known for its boat building craft. And these gentlemen are in their 70s. And I had them working with the boat and demonstrating this incredible craftsmanship that they have. When you see this boat, she's perfect symmetry, she's perfectly balanced, and she's handmade on the beach.
Well, tell me a little bit more about what goes into this, because we had a discussion prior in regards to sourcing materials for this boat. It's not just a matter of picking up the phone or going online and getting materials. You really have to make an effort to source the materials in order to do all repairs or changes that need to be made.
Yeah, we do. And, one of the challenges right from the beginning was we had to do some restoration work on the boat a year and a half ago, because she had been a little bit neglected. And so when we brought her up onto dry dock, we saw that a lot of those panels had to be replaced, the planks, literally. And a lot of that wood used to be able to find it on the island, but then we have to bring it in from Guyana, for example, because you're not dealing with a high level of deforestation in Grenada. It still has a lot of wilderness in it, but what you do have is the absence of the size of trees that you would need to be able to make these massive planks and then fit them onto the boat. So that's starting from the wood itself, and then beyond that, because not many people have wooden boats. It's definitely a labor of love. It's certainly a passion for the crazy people in some senses, but I prefer the wood because it's non-toxic. I had a fiberglass boat before, and I really hated working with all those chemicals. And with a wooden boat, you're not dealing with as many chemicals. So I really enjoyed that. And nevertheless, because there's not so many people working on wooden boats, you need to source from all over North America. And some people have even brought in some materials from Europe. But everything's worked out and she's great and she's ready to go back in the water next week. So she is special.
Wow. And what is the boat's name?
The boat's called Jambalaya. And I don't really know why she was called Jambalaya. There's never been a good explanation for that. I like to think of it as jambalaya is a mixture of seafood. And I think jambalaya is a mixture of cultures on this boat, because she's got quite the history.
And how long have you had her?
2 years.
And you've been taking charters all over the Caribbean, or just mainly out of that area?
We like to be based in Grenada. And the beauty of being in Grenada is you go north and you go south, and there's plenty of islands to island hop. And then the wind definitely usually comes from one direction quite consistently. So it makes for very smooth sailing. And it's just a lovely island hop. So when people think about taking a sailing vacation, I think some people might think that it's hardcore sailing and the boat's heeling over and it's charging through waves and, you know, you're miles offshore and you could die and things like this. There's none of that drama. you know, our longest sail is 4.5 hours. And other than that, you're on the beach, you're visiting the restaurants, you're having beach barbecues. We do snorkeling safaris. One of the things that gives me a lot of joy is not only to take people on the water, but also take people under the water. For me, that's really the beauty of where I introduce people to the ocean.
And how long is a charter traditionally with you? Is it, you know, can you do day charters, or can it be, you know, a matter of a couple of weeks?
Well, because these are always private charters, we're catering to the individual's needs. And sometimes it's just a half-day sail. Sometimes it's a birthday party or an anniversary, and sometimes it's 3 days or 7 days. And I once had an inquiry of somebody who wanted a boat for 21 days. And in that case, we'd go much further up the islands, because Grenada is one of the southernmost islands in the archipelago. So in that case, we would have gone as far as this guest would have wanted. We could have been sailing, you know, 24 hours straight if he wanted to. But typically most of our charters are day sails and 3 to 7 day sails. And that's perfect for me. You know, you have a family on board and you go sailing for 5-7 days, perfect.
Well, and you know, one thing that in our conversations, you're quite passionate about the environment as well.
Yes, most definitely. And what I like to say to people is that, you know, this is really about conservation and sustainability. And when people hear the word sustainable, sometimes it just has a lot attached to it without a specific definition. But sustainability really means something that you can do year after year without a significant impact on the environment or culture or the resources of the area. And you're not going to be depleting it. I mean, no matter what you do as a tourist, no matter how well-intended you are, there's going to be an impact. So when you're talking about ecotourism, that repeating factor, that multiple, is going to be something that benefits not just the charter company, but is going to benefit the rest of the community. Like, for example, on Jambalaya, I only serve local food and drinks. You can't get a rum and coke, but you can get a rum punch that's made from fresh fruit juice grown on the island. When we get cookies, I'm not going to buy store-bought cookies. There's a lady on the island that's baking for me. And it's the same thing with chips. If you want chips and salsa, the salsa is homemade from all the ingredients only on the island, and the chips are plantain chips that are made by a friend of mine. So there's a lot of continuity there, and that multiplier effect is that you know, the money is going back into the community. And Jambalaya herself came from this community. She came from the boat building community, and I call it tree to sea. And this is where you have a full life cycle of not only the product that we're providing, the services. And in that entire life cycle, she'll be staying in this area and serving the other people of this community too.
Wow. You know what? I never really thought of it in that way before. I mean, you know, especially in the yachting community, we do hear a lot of talk about sustainability and the environment, but you've just put it in such a way that it makes it so very easy to understand. And that's, you know, it makes complete sense. Absolutely complete sense.
Yes, it does. And, you know, that's why I think as a tourist, there is such thing as responsible consumerism. And there's no reason why you can't come to this island and have a wonderful time and not deplete the resources. You know, there's always a way to participate. And we also encourage people to take a look at some of the volunteer programs that are here. It's just another fun way to have, instead of a resort vacation, you're having more of an experience. And I think that's what people are looking for nowadays in tourism, is an experience. They want to be touched. And when they are in that area, they don't want to make a negative impact. They want to be making a positive impact. And then in this sense, that's why I say there's a multiplier effect. You may come for a sail on Jambalaya, but the things that we do on that boat are very important to the rest of the community. And of course, when we're underwater and how we're behaving with the processes on the boat, as you're saying, the yachting industry can be difficult because there's a lot of chemicals involved, but it's being really careful about how you're, everything from simply filling up your tank, making sure that there's no drips into the ocean, because, you know, a pint of fuel spilt on the ocean can cover in a football field, just the way that it disperses across the surface. So just being really careful of all those elements.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about women in yachting. You are a female captain, and there definitely aren't the number of female captains out there that in 2021 you would assume should be. What do you sort of get as feedback when people come on board Jambalaya and they see that there's a female captain?
Excitement. Definitely excitement. And usually people know that in advance. I think it makes the women more comfortable, because that means that there's an immediate connection and there's a comfort there. Whereas, I mean, when there's a male captain, I mean, absolutely, there shouldn't be any skill level difference, but it's just about making women feel more comfortable on the water. And there's a point of connection with us. And I think the men, when they come on, they're just like, oh, okay, didn't expect this. It's always positive though. Yeah, it's always positive.
Why do you think that we do have a lack of female captains in the industry?
You know, I think generally speaking, it's not just this industry, but the way that I look at it is that this is a man's world. I don't need to be a man. I need to be a woman and just move forward following whatever passion it is that I want to pursue. So I tend to kind of ignore that. But of course, in my time on the water and in my previous career, there's always that influence, certainly. But usually I just keep my focus and keep going. And it doesn't matter what other people are saying, you know. I remember one time I was pulling, this is my 46-foot yacht, I was pulling it into a spot and you had to reverse into this really tight spot. There's about 40 people watching me. And, you know, the inevitable comment was, you know, I didn't think a woman could do that. And the guys that were on the dock that are part of the marina crew, he turned over his shoulder and he said, she's the best captain we've got.
Well, that must have felt pretty good.
Yeah, but there was another time and it took me 3 times to get at that same spot. So,
so you know, what would you say to other women that, you know, would like to aspire to be a captain? What words of advice would you give?
For me, what made it so entirely accessible was other women. So that's how I started back into sailing, was with a group of other women. And I found them so unconditionally supportive. And something really magic happens when there's all women on board. And that was what I needed, to either make mistakes or ask questions or be scared. Because at first there's some of these things that we were doing when you're traveling at night and, you know, it's completely black and a storm kicks up and you're thinking, what am I doing here? And you look around, you see these other women who are courageous and competent and bold, and you're like, okay, And so now when I do those things, I'm like, this isn't crazy at all. This is fun. But it's about building up those skills and finding that camaraderie and that supportive environment. And, you know, anything boys can do, girls can do possibly better. I always really enjoy my time sailing with other women. Yeah.
Well, as this show is called Secrets of the Caribbean, for those out there that haven't been to the Caribbean or have been to the Caribbean before, what is something that you would say for someone coming to do a holiday or to charter a boat or a yacht? What would your recommendations be that most people wouldn't consider doing?
Oh, number one, I would say come to Grenada. You know, and when you talk, the Caribbean is a huge area and that you can have many experiences. But the thing I really love about Grenada is that you've also got the island itself. And Grenada is made up of 3 islands, and each island's very different. So not only can you can do the land and you can do the sea and you can do a blend of it. So I think you've got this unique these unique islands where you can explore waterfalls and jungles and monkeys and the water, and it's very safe. Like coming here alone as a female captain living on my own boat, I always felt safe. And the one thing that you always, the first thing that's on a woman's mind when she travels somewhere is it's safe. And what are the things we need to do to ensure that we are safe? And I found that Grenada, I haven't felt threatened or intimidated or had any close calls or anything. So that's one of the things. So I think you can really speaks well to Grenada and the people, is that it's safe. And of course, beautiful. It's not as crowded as some islands in the north.
Wow. You know what? Every time I do one of these interviews, I haven't been to the Caribbean, and I realize that is definitely one of those places that I'm going to need to get to.
Yes, and you have to realize that every island you visit is special. Each island has a character, and each island is full of characters. So you can explore to your heart's content, and the only expectation you should have is to be surprised and thrilled and enriched with every stop that you're making on each one of these islands. Yeah, it's really a treat. And even though I've been here for 5 years now, you can go to the same place and see different things. I have my little favorite places because they always give me something new. I always have surprises around the corner. And I don't want that to be a secret. That needs to be shared. So I'm really happy to be participating in this call, just to let everyone know there's something special you got to see.
Well, you know what? We're going to make sure to provide all of your links and ways to get a hold of you when this interview airs, because I think it's really important. And if people want to reach out and perhaps charter your yacht or and experience, you know, the area the way I imagine it was experienced years and years ago. If this is one of those original sailboats, wooden sailboats.
Yeah, that's the idea. And I have to say there's something absolutely magical about it. I mean, sailing's wonderful, but there's something magical about being on a wooden boat with so much history and tradition. You can feel it. And when she's sailing, she's so strong, just like as the same cargo ships from hundreds of years ago. And you can really feel that spirit when you're sailing her. And then you're just getting embraced by the wind and the waves. And it's pretty wonderful, as you can tell. I'm pretty thrilled about it.
We can tell that you love what you do, for sure. I mean, they say that if you find a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And for you, I think you found that. Yeah,
it's been wonderful. It really is. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Well, once again, this has been Captain Monique Mills, and she is coming to us from Grenada in St. George's, sorry, correct?
St. George's, yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah, we really enjoyed it. And once again, if you want to find out any more information about Monique or as well sail Jambalaya and the history of sailing in the Caribbean, I'm sure she is more than willing to give you that information and connect up with you. You've been watching another edition of Inside Secrets of the Caribbean. My name is Ria. I have been your host. Please tune in again next week for another episode.